Have you ever felt like the world was stacked against you, but you still found the strength to fight back? What would you do if you were pushed to your limits every single day? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your story. And if you're ready to see where this journey leads, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss what happens next. The California State Penitentiary, known as Riverside Prison Yard, was silent as the steel gates slammed shut behind old Marcus. The constant low hum of machinery mixed with the occasional clang of the guards' boots on the concrete floor. He stood still, taking in the weight of the place, a place where lives went to fade, where hope withered, and the air tasted of forgotten years. Old Marcus's weathered face didn't betray much, but the tension in his shoulders told a different story. He had been here too long, far too long. Wrongly accused, imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. He wasn't just a prisoner. He was a man waiting for time to either break him or free him. He wasn't sure which one he wanted more. The young guards shuffled around the yard, their faces blank, eyes distant. The veterans didn't pay him any mind. He was just another old man, locked away. But Marcus wasn't just any old man. He spent his days avoiding the attention of the others, sticking to his routine, eating, walking, staying out of trouble. But that didn't stop the whispers. It didn't stop them from seeing him. His black skin, his age, and his stoic expression made him a target. Not for a fight, not yet, but for something worse. A reminder. Marcus slowly walked along the yard, his eyes never meeting those of the other inmates, but always aware of their eyes on him. Bull Reggie, the tallest of the bullies, was standing near the entrance to the cafeteria, his arms crossed, a sneer forming as he looked at old Marcus. There were 3 others with him: Bull Travis, Bull Jordan, and Bull Keith. Each one was bigger, younger, and more volatile than the next. They didn't need to raise their fists to hurt Marcus. The looks, the taunts, those were enough. Marcus had been here long enough to know that. And so, he walked on, pretending not to notice, pretending the weight of their stares didn't matter. But it did. Every day, the same thing. Every day, he'd walk the yard, stick to his path, and every day, they'd follow him. Bull Reggie might not speak directly to him, but his eyes told a story. A story of resentment, of hatred, of power. They were trying to break him. The whispers from the other inmates echoed in Marcus's mind, but he blocked them out. "You gonna let him talk to you like that?" they would say. "Look at him. He's a weak old man." No one cared to know his real story. No one cared why he was here. But Ivy did. He saw her in the distance, her back straight, her shoulders squared, making her way through the yard, balancing a tray of food in her hands. Old Marcus wasn't the only one who noticed her. The bullies did too. Bull Travis grinned, his eyes following Ivy as she moved through the yard, heading toward the corner where Marcus always sat. His grin grew wider. Marcus didn't need to see that look on Bull Travis's face to know what he was thinking. It was a game to them. They thought they had power over the weak. But Ivy? She didn't belong here. She wasn't an inmate. She was one of the few who walked through these gates without the weight of it all on her shoulders. And that was exactly why they hated her. She was different. Marcus had known Ivy for a while. She wasn't here to just serve food. There was something about her, something unafraid in her eyes. She reminded him of the person he once was, a time long before the walls closed in. She was the only one who didn't look at him like he was invisible, or worse, like he deserved this fate. But that didn't stop the bullies from making her their target. Ivy stopped near Marcus's corner, carefully setting the tray down in front of him, her hands shaking just slightly. He knew it wasn't from fear, but from the weight of the situation. She had been bringing him food for weeks, always with the same determination, despite the taunts. She had become a silent ally. "You're looking better today, Mr. Davis," she said quietly, keeping her voice low so that the bullies wouldn't hear. She knew it wasn't just the food that kept him going. It was the simple act of not being invisible. Old Marcus didn't respond at first. He didn't have to. Ivy understood. She was the only one who ever did. She placed a small piece of paper under the tray. No words, just a message. She wanted him to read it later. It was more than just food. It was a message of solidarity, a lifeline in a place that thrived on crushing everything. But as she turned to leave, she felt a hand on her arm. Bull Keith was behind her, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "You really care about this old man, huh?" he said, his voice low, mocking. Ivy froze. The grip on her arm tightened. Marcus felt his blood pressure rise, but he didn't move. His eyes locked onto Ivy's, a silent promise in the look he gave her. "Stay calm." Bull Reggie's voice cut through the tension. "Leave her alone. She knows what she's doing." But Bull Travis was getting restless. "Maybe she just wants a little fun." The bullies circled Ivy like vultures, sensing her vulnerability. Ivy stood tall, her eyes flashing with anger, but she refused to show fear. That was when janitor Dante appeared. Standing by the yard's edge, he watched the exchange, his face a mask of quiet intensity. The old man's nephew, the one who worked silently behind the scenes, Janitor Dante had never been a figure of note. But something about this moment made him stop. Something about Ivy's courage resonated with him. His eyes narrowed, and he moved slowly toward them, his boots thudding softly against the concrete, his fists clenched at his sides. The tension in the air was rising, but Dante didn't make a sound. Old Marcus could feel it too. He could feel Janitor Dante's presence, and for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself a small moment of hope. Ivy wasn't alone. The Bulls didn't know it yet, but the game was about to change. Old Marcus's feet dragged across the yard, each step feeling heavier than the last. The sun beat down mercilessly, its heat pressing against his back like a physical weight. But it was more than the heat that made him feel this way. His chest was tight, every breath a little shallower than the last, and his shoulders, usually stiff with the weight of the world, felt even more rigid today. Something in the air had changed, like a storm that hadn't yet broken but could be felt in the wind. He kept his eyes forward, forcing himself to move with purpose. The familiar sounds of the yard, the clang of gates, the distant shouts of the guards seemed muted, far off. His focus narrowed to the ground beneath his feet, the jagged cracks in the concrete, the worn patches where the dust had settled, and his own thoughts. He had seen the bullies before, Bull Reggie, Bull Travis, and the rest. They were always there, lurking, watching. But today, their presence felt different, more deliberate, more oppressive. Marcus tried to ignore them, but the weight of their eyes on his back made it impossible. His body tensed instinctively. The hot breath of the yard pressed against him from every side. Ivy was at the far end of the yard, just coming from the cafeteria. She walked with her usual quiet strength, her head held high. But even from a distance, Marcus could see the slight tension in her movements. The way her hands gripped the tray a little tighter than usual. Something was wrong. She glanced in his direction as she walked, a quick but reassuring smile flickering across her face. Marcus returned it with a nod, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing in the air, something more than just the typical cruelty he faced daily. As Ivy neared Marcus's corner, the sound of boots clicking behind her snapped his attention back. Bull Travis. His footsteps were heavy, deliberate, and they made the hair on the back of Marcus's neck stand up. The others followed, lingering in the shadows as they often did. Marcus took a deep breath. He couldn't let his body betray him. Not now. The tension in his chest was suffocating, But he steadied himself, his gaze fixed on Ivy as she approached. She was close now, just a few steps away. But Bull Travis moved faster. He was already in front of her, blocking her path. "You really gonna keep playing hero, huh?" Bull Travis sneered, his voice thick with malice. Ivy stopped in her tracks, the tray in her hands shaking slightly. She didn't flinch, though. Instead, she looked up at him, her expression unwavering. "I'm just bringing breakfast to someone who needs it." "Needs it?" Bull Travis scoffed. "That old man don't need nothing but a reality check. You think you're helping him? You think he deserves it?" Ivy didn't back down. "He deserves respect, just like anyone else." "Respect? Ha! That's a joke." Marcus felt the sting of the words even from here, but he didn't move. He kept his eyes locked on Ivy, watching her stand her ground, though his heart ached. He knew what she was doing, fighting back against the oppression, the injustice, but he also knew how dangerous it was, especially in a place like this, where every action was scrutinized, every word weighed. Bull Reggie stepped forward, his bulk blocking the light, casting a long shadow over the yard. "You better step aside, girl," he said, his voice low, warning. "You're not gonna last long in this game." Ivy took a small step back, but her eyes didn't waver. She didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. Old Marcus couldn't take it anymore. His fists clenched at his sides, his jaw tight with frustration. The stillness of his past, the years of swallowing his anger, he was done with it. Done with the fear, done with the silence. But he didn't move. Not yet. "Don't you think you've said enough?" Ivy's voice rang out, stronger now, refusing to back down. "I've seen enough. You're all cowards hiding behind this place. It's pathetic." The tension in the air felt like it was about to snap. Every muscle in Marcus's body ached to move, but he held himself still. He knew what was coming next, and it wouldn't be easy. There was a quiet moment, the kind that always preceded something dangerous. The bullies didn't know it yet, but the game was about to change. Not today, not with a fight, but with something deeper. Something that had been building for years inside Marcus. The day of reckoning was coming, and today, things would shift. From the corner of his eye, Marcus saw a shadow at the edge of the yard, lingering by the storage shed. A man watching, Janitor Dante. He had been moving through the yard, unnoticed as always, but today, there was something different in the way he stood. He wasn't cleaning. He wasn't just another face. Marcus couldn't tell what Dante's role was in this moment, but something about his stance made it clear. He wasn't just a janitor. He was part of something bigger, something Marcus couldn't yet see, but he felt it. Ivy's eyes flickered over to Dante for a brief second, but she didn't let the bullies see the shift in her gaze. She kept her stance firm, still holding the tray, but her body language was beginning to betray her. The tightness in her shoulders, the clenched fist behind the tray as if she were ready to defend herself, even if it cost her. "You have no idea who you're messing with, girl." Bull Reggie's voice broke through the tension again, but his words were suddenly overshadowed by the distant low hum of a noise Marcus hadn't heard before. Something deep and rumbling coming from the gates. A vehicle? No. Footsteps. Heavy boots. The sound grew louder. It wasn't just a few footsteps. It was a massive presence moving through the yard, and it wasn't the guards. It wasn't the usual prison staff. It was something else. Something bigger. And this time, there was no ignoring it. The sound of heavy boots echoed across the yard, a low thud that rattled through the air like a drumbeat. Dante didn't move, but his body stiffened, and his eyes, usually calm, narrowed. The military boots marched forward with undeniable purpose, each step closer than the last. It wasn't the usual humdrum of prison life. This was different, louder, more deliberate.
His gaze flicked over the yard. The bullies, still hovering near Marcus and Ivy, hadn't noticed the shift. The tension was thick, but Dante wasn't paying attention to them anymore. His mind was elsewhere, his thoughts tangled in the call he made earlier that morning. His hand had been shaking when he pressed the phone to his ear, dialing in the numbers he'd memorized years ago. The soldiers were coming. The soldiers were coming for a reason. Dante's chest tightened at the thought. The military wasn't a vague force here. They were his men, the ones he'd trained with, fought alongside. And now they were on their way to his world, this quiet, suffocating prison yard where his past and present collided with the weight of guilt and fear. "It's time, Dante," he thought, but the words didn't feel like a relief. Dante kept his distance from the chaos around him. His janitor's uniform had become a shield, an invisible wall between him and the rest of the prison. The mop and broom he carried were never just tools. They were his armor, his way of blending into the background. His quiet life had been built on this. Keep your head down, do your job, and stay out of trouble. It wasn't a grand philosophy, but it worked. He hadn't been to prison like the others. He hadn't committed a crime. But here, in this concrete jungle, he had become something else. A ghost. But old Marcus, his uncle, he had a different way of handling things. His pride and stoicism were constant reminders of who Dante used to be before the world had gone silent. He used to be the man who could stand tall, who could make decisions without hesitation. Now, Dante barely recognized himself in the mirror. Every day was a grind, a quiet surrender, even as he watched Marcus suffer. As Dante continued to watch, his fingers clenched around the broom's handle, feeling the rough wood beneath his skin. Guilt was a familiar companion now, a weight that pressed harder each day Marcus endured the bullying. Dante had seen the way the bullies tore into old Marcus, the taunts, the shoves, the way they used his age and race as weapons. But every time, Dante held back. There was always another excuse. He wasn't ready. He didn't have enough power. But today, the weight of it all seemed unbearable. He could hear Bull Reggie's voice in the distance, taunting Ivy as she handed food to Marcus. The words were venomous, but Ivy didn't flinch. She just stood her ground. Dante admired her for that. She didn't back down, even though the entire yard was watching, waiting for the slightest crack in her resolve. She was different from the others. She wasn't afraid of old Marcus. She was the only one who saw him for what he was, a man of dignity. But even Ivy, strong as she was, had limits. Dante could see the way she clenched her fists as the bullies closed in. He could see the fear in her eyes, fear not for herself, but for old Marcus. Dante had never been close to Marcus, not really. He had always been the quiet nephew, the one who kept his distance. Their relationship was strained, held together by shared history, but disconnected by the years Dante had spent avoiding the truth. His uncle had been wrongly imprisoned, and Dante had allowed it to happen. He had stayed silent, watching from the sidelines, but that was before the bullies, before Marcus had to endure this torment every day. Dante ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. He knew old Marcus needed him. He knew he couldn't keep hiding anymore. He couldn't hide behind the uniform anymore. His guilt was eating away at him. He had to act. Now. The sound of the boots grew louder, the rhythm of them breaking through his thoughts. The soldiers were getting closer. Dante's eyes shot toward the entrance of the yard where the massive gates creaked open. This was it. The military was here. They weren't just passing through. They were coming for something. And Dante had made the call. Earlier that morning, Dante had stood in his small, cluttered janitor's office, his hands hovering over the phone. The echo of his uncle's suffering had been too much to ignore. Old Marcus wasn't just his uncle. He was the only family Dante had left.
Family meant something to Dante, even in a place like this, where it felt like everything else had been taken from him. So, he picked up the phone. He knew the consequences. He knew the risks of involving his past, of bringing his military connections back into this world. But something inside him broke. Something deep. Something primal. He dialed the number, the secret number, and the voice on the other end had been calm, steady, just like Dante remembered. "We're ready," the voice said. But as he hung up, Dante couldn't shake the feeling that this was his final moment. There would be no going back after this. The military was coming. But was it enough to stop the bullies? Was it enough to save old Marcus? The boots were now at the gates, the rumble of their approach shaking the ground beneath Dante's feet. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched the soldiers march, each one an imposing figure of discipline and power. The weight of his decision pressed against his chest like an iron vice. Was it too late? The sound of the boots stopped at the edge of the yard. Every eye turned in their direction, every muscle in the prison yard tightening in anticipation. Dante's chest heaved with the weight of the moment. He had been watching the bullies for days, waiting for the right time to confront them. Today would be different. Today, it was going to end. But as Dante stepped forward, ready to speak, ready to take control, the shout from old Marcus stopped him cold. "Leave me alone, Dante!" Old Marcus's voice cracked through the tension like a whip. "I am but an old man, and this is my fate. Leave me." Dante froze, his mouth going dry. The air seemed to suddenly thicken, a weight he couldn't shake off. His hand tightened around the broom he held, his whole body going still. Old Marcus, his uncle, the man he had sworn to protect, was rejecting him. The bullies, Bull Reggie, Bull Travis, and the rest, watched with smug grins. They knew something Dante didn't. Their eyes sparkled with victory, their confidence palpable. They had orchestrated this moment, set this scene, and now they watched as it all unfolded. Dante's eyes darted between old Marcus and the bullies. He was confused, hurt, but he refused to show it. The crack in Marcus's resolve felt like a deep betrayal, a gut punch Dante hadn't expected. The sound of old Marcus's voice echoed in his mind. "Leave me alone, Dante." The words didn't just sting, they broke him. He stood frozen, unsure of what to do. His uncle, the man who had always seemed stoic and strong, had just given in. The bullies' grins widened. Bull Reggie, standing just a few feet away, laughed under his breath. "We got him good!" Dante's fists clenched. He wanted to speak, to demand Marcus explain himself, but he couldn't. Not after hearing those words. His uncle had just surrendered, and it hurt more than anything he'd ever experienced. Ivy stood nearby, her eyes wide with shock, unable to move. She didn't understand, couldn't comprehend why old Marcus would resist Dante's help. Why didn't he trust Dante? The confusion was written across her face as she stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why, Marcus? Why are you doing this?" Old Marcus didn't respond. His eyes avoided hers, filled with pain and resignation. The bully's laughter echoed again, but it only made the moment feel more suffocating. Ivy's gaze flicked over to Bull Reggie. Her sharp eyes caught something she hadn't seen before. Reggie's subtle hand gesture, a quick motion to his neck, the kind that didn't need words. The meaning was clear. They would kill him if he didn't obey. Her heart dropped. The fear on old Marcus's face suddenly made sense. The weight of his silence wasn't just fear of the bullies, it was a fear of the unknown, of what they could do to his daughter. The pieces started to fall into place. Later that night, Ivy found herself back at old Marcus's cell. The tension in the yard hadn't left her. The conversation with old Marcus had left her shaken, but there was something about it that didn't add up. She couldn't just walk away from this. Old Marcus, please, tell me the truth. Why did you resist Dante? Why are you protecting them? Ivy's voice was firm, but the worry in her eyes betrayed her calm exterior. Old Marcus looked at her, his face a mixture of guilt and defeat. He sighed heavily, staring at the concrete wall as if searching for the right words. I didn't want this life for you, Ivy, he began, his voice breaking. But I couldn't protect you anymore. The bullies, they have my daughter. They told me if I don't do what they say, they'll kill her. Ivy's heart sank as the weight of his words hit her like a blow. The bullies had his daughter, the one person he loved and was trying to protect. Old Marcus's voice trembled. They said they would expose me, tell the system about my escape plan. They said they would harm her the moment I stopped doing what they wanted. I tried to escape to see her. I just wanted to hold her one more time. But they caught me. And since that day, they've held her over me like a weapon. If I don't do their bidding, they'll make her pay. Ivy's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. Old Marcus was a prisoner of more than just bars. He was shackled by the threat of his daughter's death. This wasn't about just survival anymore. This was about sacrificing everything to protect the one person he loved more than life itself. The final revelation came when old Marcus admitted that the bullies had given him one final, terrible task. The next day, he was to help them escape the prison and take the shot, likely a sniper's shot at a guard or another inmate in exchange for his daughter's safety. Ivy was stunned. The idea of old Marcus being forced to murder someone to save his daughter was too much to process. She stood there, staring at him, unable to speak for a long moment. What must I do for them? She asked quietly, knowing the answer was going to crush her. Old Marcus looked up, his face pale. I must help them escape and take the shot. If I don't, they'll kill her. I have no choice. Ivy stared at old Marcus, her mind reeling with the implications of what he had just told her. How could she protect him now? How could she protect his daughter? She was faced with a moral dilemma that felt like a nightmare, and all she wanted was to fix it. Would she confront the bullies, or would she find a way to free old Marcus from their grasp? The decisions she made tonight would change everything. The sound of heavy boots echoed down the hall as Dante walked towards his brother, the leader of the army. His mind was still reeling from the events that had just unfolded. The scene in the yard, old Marcus's betrayal, the bullies' smugness. It all felt like a weight crushing him from the inside out. Dante struggled to put the pieces together, his mind too fragmented to make sense of what had happened. He needed to explain it to his brother, but even as he opened his mouth, the words felt hollow. I don't understand, Dante muttered, his voice cracking as he tried to explain the situation. I thought we were going to help him, but Marcus, he's resisting. He's pushing me away. And the bullies, they know something I don't. They're playing us, and I'm not sure how to fix it. His brother, the army leader, listened silently. He didn't interrupt, but his gaze was focused, calculating. He knew Dante needed time to process it, but it was clear his brother wasn't as emotionally involved in the situation. To him, the mission came first. Everything else was secondary. Just as Dante was about to speak again, the door creaked open. Ivy stepped inside, her face tight with concern. There was something different in her eyes, something Dante couldn't quite place. She walked straight towards him, as if she had no intention of waiting. I need to talk to you, Dante, she said, her voice steady but urgent. It's about old Marcus. Ivy's urgency was evident in her every movement. Dante and his brother exchanged a quick glance, but Ivy was already speaking before Dante could say a word. Old Marcus, he told me everything. Dante's heart dropped.
He had expected some kind of answer, but not the one Ivy was about to give. His mind raced, trying to brace himself for whatever she was about to say, but nothing could have prepared him for the words that came next.
"The bullies have his daughter," Ivy said, the weight of the words sinking in. "They've threatened to kill her if Marcus doesn't do their bidding. He's been forced to comply, Dante. That's why he's been so distant." Dante felt the ground shift beneath him. His mind couldn't process what Ivy was saying. Old Marcus, the man who had always been his pillar, was now a broken man, forced to serve the bullies because of his daughter. Dante's world tilted, his thoughts scattering like dust in the wind. "No, that can't be true," he whispered, almost to himself. "He's just given up. He couldn't." Ivy's expression softened, but it was filled with a deep sadness. He didn't have a choice. The bullies have a network outside the prison. They told him if he didn't do exactly as they said, they'd make his daughter suffer. He's been trying to protect her, but at what cost? Dante turned away from Ivy, his hands clenching into fists. He couldn't. He didn't want to believe it. He wanted to believe that old Marcus was just being stubborn, that he hadn't given in to fear. But this was different. "There's more," Ivy added, her voice low and hesitant. "He told me everything. How they want him to help them escape the prison tomorrow. He has to take a shot, a sniper's shot. He's been ordered to do it in exchange for his daughter's safety." Dante's breath caught in his throat. Old Marcus, the man who had once been his hero, was now being forced to make an impossible choice. The pain of that revelation hit him like a freight train. "Ivy, what are we supposed to do now?" Dante's voice cracked as he turned back to her. "What's the right thing to do? We can't just let this happen." Ivy looked at him, her eyes filled with the same mix of determination and fear. "I don't know, but we have to make sure Marcus doesn't have to take that shot. We have to protect his daughter." The weight of the situation hung heavy in the room. Dante's brother stood quietly, absorbing the information, but it was clear he was thinking. The army leader was always calm, always in control, but even Dante could see the internal conflict. "The bullies must be stopped," the army leader finally said, his voice low but firm. "We'll let the plan play out tomorrow as if we don't know what's coming. But when the time comes, we'll step in. We'll stop it." Dante's eyes flicked between his brother and Ivy, the tension in his chest still tight with uncertainty. He wanted to believe they could stop the bullies, but the stakes were higher than ever. Old Marcus was caught in a web of fear and duty, and Dante wasn't sure if they could untangle it in time. As Ivy handed him the paper containing the final piece of the puzzle, Dante's eyes scanned the words. The names, the involvement of the religious priest down the street. It all clicked. Marcus had taken the shot to protect his dignity, just as he was about to take the shot for the bully gang. It all made sense now, but that didn't make it easier to swallow. "We'll follow through with the plan tomorrow," Dante's brother said, his voice unwavering. "But we won't let it go as far as they think. We'll be ready." The plan was set, but the suspense still lingered. Dante and his brother exchanged a look, and the weight of what they had to do next seemed unbearable. Ivy's face was etched with concern, but also with a spark of hope. She wasn't giving up on Marcus, and neither was Dante. As they walked out of the room, the air was thick with anticipation. They had made their decision, but the unknown still loomed. The bullies still had power, and old Marcus still had a fate he couldn't escape. As the scene ends, Dante is left questioning everything. How will they stop the bullies? Will they be able to protect Marcus's daughter? And most importantly, what will happen when the bullies' plan unfolds tomorrow? The day had arrived. The morning air in the prison yard felt like it had been holding its breath for days. Every inmate seemed to feel it. The undeniable tension, the heavy weight in the air. Old Marcus sat alone on the edge of his cot, staring out the narrow window of his cell. His mind was a battlefield, torn between the choices he had made, the betrayal he'd suffered, and the moral decision that still lingered like a dark cloud. Today, his fate would be sealed. As the sound of heavy boots echoed down the hall, Marcus knew that today wasn't just another day. The tap, tap, tap of the boots grew louder, coming closer to his cell, and with it, his growing anxiety. The door slammed open, and Bull Reggie stood there, his towering figure casting a shadow across Marcus's small space. "Time's up, old man." Bull Reggie's voice was like gravel scraping against metal. "You know the plan? Stick to it, and you're good." Old Marcus nodded, barely looking at him, his throat tight. His lips trembled, but he held his composure. The bullies had been using his daughter as leverage, forcing him to cooperate, to walk the path they set for him. "I'll do as you ask." His voice was strained, but firm. The next few moments felt like a blur. Marcus was ushered out, his heart pounding in his chest, as if every step he took was drawing him closer to some inevitable end. The front gate of the prison loomed ahead like a monolithic wall, and Marcus's steps grew heavier. The bullies would use the back gate, while he would be sent to the front, just as planned. The tension was suffocating. Each breath felt like it might be his last. Every footstep was louder than the one before it. Marcus's legs ached, but he kept walking, his eyes fixed straight ahead, willing himself to keep moving. His hands clenched into fists by his sides. He didn't want to do this, but his hands were tied. His daughter's life hung in the balance. Just as he neared the front gate, something caught his eye. A figure standing in the distance. His heart leapt. At first he thought it was his mind playing tricks on him, but as he stepped closer, the sight shocked him to his core. Dante stood by the gate, but it wasn't just Dante. Beside him was his elder brother, the army leader, and behind them were dozens of soldiers lined up like an impenetrable wall. But the shock didn't end there. As Marcus's gaze moved from Dante to the small group, he saw something that caused his breath to stop. Standing in front of them, safe and unharmed, was his daughter. His little girl, the one he had fought so desperately to protect, was standing there, alive. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, and she ran toward him, her face radiant with a smile he hadn't seen in years. Marcus's legs nearly gave out. Tears welled up in his eyes as he reached for her, pulling her into his arms. "My baby," he whispered, his voice cracking. His heart felt like it was breaking wide open, and yet, for the first time in so long, he felt hope. How are you here?" Marcus asked, his hands shaking as he held her tightly. Dante stepped forward, his face serious, but with a hint of relief. The system knew about the escape plan. "Marcus, we've been waiting for this moment." His voice was calm but firm, as if he had known all along what needed to happen. The soldiers, though still in formation, looked ready for whatever came next, their eyes alert and prepared. Marcus stared at his daughter, then back at Dante. His mind was still racing, trying to piece everything together. Before he could say anything else, a voice rang out over the yard. "The bullies, Marcus, they're using you. We've already caught them." It was Ivy. She walked into the yard, her face resolute. "The whole plan, they've been under surveillance the entire time." Her words hit Marcus like a wave, crashing over him and dragging away his confusion. At that moment, the atmosphere changed. The fear he had lived with for so long, the fear that had kept him in chains, was now being replaced with something he hadn't dared to hope for: freedom. Before he could let the weight of this revelation sink in, a loud crash echoed from the back of the prison. The bullies, Bull Reggie, Bull Travis, and their cronies, had tried to make their escape, jumping over the fence, believing they could slip away unnoticed. But they were wrong. They landed in front of the 50 military men who were waiting for them with weapons drawn and determined expressions. The bullies stood frozen, realizing too late that they had walked straight into a trap. The soldiers moved in swiftly, capturing the bullies with military precision. Bull Reggie tried to fight back, but the soldiers were on him in seconds. The scene was chaotic but controlled, with every step taken to ensure the bullies would face the consequences of their actions. Old Marcus could only watch as the bullies were dragged away, their sentences extended, their control shattered. As the military handled the rest of the chaos, Ivy approached Marcus again, her eyes softened with understanding. She handed him a folded envelope, and as he opened it, he found an official court invitation, an invitation to stand before a judge in a week's time to review his case. Marcus was stunned. This was it, his chance to prove his innocence. Dante, standing next to Ivy, placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Take the shot for no one, Marcus. But this time, say the truth, for your daughter's sake." Marcus looked at the envelope, the weight of it heavy in his hands. It was a chance, a lifeline, a moment he could seize to set things right. A week later, the courtroom was packed. Evidence had been gathered, the truth laid bare, and old Marcus's case was reviewed. The priest who had orchestrated the crimes, the one who had manipulated Marcus, was apprehended, his role in the scheme revealed. Old Marcus stood in front of the judge, but this time, it wasn't as a prisoner. He wasn't broken anymore. He wasn't scared anymore. He was standing in the light of truth, with his head held high. And then, as the judge slammed the gavel, Marcus heard the words he had been waiting for his entire life. "You are free to go." Outside the prison gates, 12 limousines waited in a line, gleaming under the California sun. Marcus stepped out of the prison, a free man. The prison walls that had once held him in despair now felt miles away. As he stepped into one of the limousines, Ivy and Dante were by his side. This was a new beginning for them all. The prison, the bullies, the threats, all of it was now behind them. But for the bullies, their sentences had been extended, their futures sealed. The world had changed, and they were now left to face the consequences of their actions. The end of one story marked the beginning of another. For old Marcus, it was a journey of redemption, one that brought him freedom and a chance to be the man he always wanted to be for his daughter. The prison no longer had control over his life. Truth had set him free, and now he was finally home. What would you do if you were in old Marcus's shoes? Would you risk everything for your family, or would you stand up for the truth no matter the cost? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more.